Three sword style. Ah! Uh, Ignore that. Hey everyone, welcome back to another One Piece theory, or theories, what do you want to call this. Thank you for the to the commenter. I think Isaac is his username for the idea for this video. He made a couple of comments. Actually, our burst of a couple of comments over 3 videos that were released over I think 3 weeks. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your interjections. The thing is, I would like to take your camera suggestion, but I'm using a camera right now that's on my laptop. Until I find a way to, or find a decent camera that's decent price. So, it's probably a combination between my camera and your internet, but it's probably just my camera. It's like, you know. Okay, this is a comment. This is a viewer in response to the Sanji thing. In terms of, like, he brought up that a couple of interesting facts about Sanji. That was already kind of out there that I completely forgot to mention. But he also brought up something interesting and I never thought about too much. It's the concept or the backstory of Roranoro Zoro, the man with 3 swords. Now I think maybe the idea of this is like it's a random idea. I like to take random ideas that no one else has probably talked about. There's a huge plethora of Zoro fanboys out there, and a lot of them just like him because of how cool he is, and no doubt that he is very freaking cool. He's probably one of the cooler characters of One Piece. But there's also kind of a problem with him. He is very mysterious, and I guess there's not really a... 1 minute, folks. Sorry about that. Back to Roranoro Zoro. He's a really cool character. This one thing is like not much ever really interested or brought up Zoro's background. And I took when I was at work today, I decided to while I was doing some work and I had one hand free, I decided to look up some information about Zoro, specifically on the One Piece wiki, which is where I get a lot of information from. And I look at Zoro's background, and the very first portion is something we all know about is his relationship with Karai. I think they pronounce her name Karai, and she's one of the main reasons for Zoro wanting to become the greatest swordsman in the world. And a lot of you who probably tuned in later on, personally watch the very beginning of the One Piece series, which is very slow, but trust me, there's a lot of useful information there. If you just tuned in for One Piece and you just kind of tuned in way after all the Straw Hats are together, there's a lot of useful information, you know, about each Straw Hat in a couple episodes, and the very beginning episodes are really good to set them in for the remainder of the series. But Zoro's like main drive is to become the greatest swordsman, to fulfill a wish that he made to a girl, who I'm pretty much gonna say he has a crush on her. Even I think she was older than him, maybe 2 years, maybe. Granted, that's not unusual. It's just something I kind of have to bring up, that she was taller than him. But then again, usually boys and girls at that age, very young age, like their heights are different, vastly different. It's only when they get older where they actually start, you know, the girl stops growing while the guy keeps growing. But that's neither here nor there. Zoro's inspiration was Karai, this girl who wanted to become a great swordsman as well. And actually, kind of funny thing is, a lot of things about Zoro, especially his unyielding desire to always win, comes from his unyielding desire to want to constantly beat Karai. I think it has something to do with the fact that he's never beat Karai. He'll never get a chance to ever beat her because, well, she's dead. Spoiler alert if you somehow tuned in this far into the One Piece series not knowing about that little tidbit about his past. But another thing Isaac kind of brought up was interesting too. I never thought about this until now. But recently, just like with Sanji and the whole him being on the Baratie at such a young age, it makes no sense. Zoro is kind of in the same situation. It's like he's a little kid trying to learn swordsmanship. That's weird to me. Now if I really think about it, that is never really explained. Did Zoro grow up there, and it's just some kind of rite of passage to become a man in that village? The little boys are actually trained to use swords. Granted, he was using a bamboo stick, but he's still being trained to use a blade in the future. I guess the main goal of this training is for him to be able to become a swordsman. Now, before I go into my own kind of theories about maybe what we'll get in the potential Wano Country arc, which has been teased for years at this point. Um, Now, his relationship with Karai was pretty much the basis of his swordsmanship career. He trained in swords to beat Karai. Um, the little thing about Karai though was she always beat Zoro, but her father came one day after beating Zoro and Zoro ran away. Karai's father came up to her um, after she, yelled at her desire to become the greatest swordsman, and Karai's father, being a chauvinist, said that she cannot become the greatest swordsman because swordsmen need to be male. This is what the English translation was, and because Karai was a girl, as she developed, she would become weaker than a guy, and this really made her upset, and pretty much she envied Zoro because he was a guy. At some point, he was going to actually beat her, because of because of male-female differences. Zoro, though, kind of reassured us, saying that he will not beat her because she's a girl. He will beat her because he's better skilled than her. And that was a very interesting way to say that to somebody, especially her, Karai, who's always beat her. And really, he only said that because he was getting pissed off about her defeatist attitude. And it was just really kind of cool to see that kind of relationship between those two, because it kind of showed Zoro's other side, his passionate side. But back to Zoro's background. Now, if you go a little bit further on, you don't really get this. You don't really get this too much. But Zoro has. I don't even know what this is. He's very direct. He's very direction inept. You tell him to go north, he'll go east. If you tell him to go south, he'll most likely go north. It's very weird. And I never thought about that too much, but he actually ended up getting lost on his journey to becoming the greatest swordsman. He actually kind of found out about Dracul Mihawk and set out on his own journey to go defeat him. From what I read, he ended up getting lost and he never made it back to his village. This leads into him becoming the great pirate hunter Zoro. He ends up taking on bounties to pretty much pay for living expenses. He's constantly roaming the world till he meets up with Luffy and ends up roaming on the sea. But he ends up becoming a pirate hunter, becoming really well known. That's kind of all the way up to now. We get the present Zoro, who's still cool, still completely badass. Got trained by Dracul Mihawk. But we go back to the past before Zoro, was training under Karai's father. We don't really know much about Zoro's parents. We don't know much about Zoro's heritage. We don't even know where the idea of the three sword stock came from. Although it's my humble opinion that it came from the fact that he wanted to become the greatest swordsman using Karai's sword, so it'd be like she achieved the dream at the same time. I think that's really what the three sword style is really a testament to, is him using the other blade, the one that isn't in his mouth, as a way to not sully, her sword. But in the end, her sword got broken anyway, so he will never be able to truly use her sword again unless he gets it healed, which is probably what's gonna be the point of Wano Country. Is Zoro's gonna find out that swords can be reforged here, and we'll find out how to reforge Karai's sword, and maybe he'll go back to using Karai's sword, or what he'll do is he'll leave it as a backup in case he needs the extra strength. But a little about Zoro's past isn't really revealed, especially how very strong and he's very freaking. His strength is weird to me. It's unnatural. Being part of the monster trio, it makes a lot of sense. But Zoro's strength is completely unnatural. He trained a lot as a kid, so it kind of explains why he's so freaking strong now. He trained a lot as a kid, so I think a lot of it is coming back to him naturally. He has very weird uber techniques. I wonder where he came up with a name for a lot of his attacks. I'm curious, did he watch sword techniques? Did he watch people display sword techniques and he learned to adapt the sword techniques to his own style? The Centoryu, which is what it's actually called. Nobody really knows. We don't even know where Zoro was at the time, or how he was born. What was he? If Zoro was his real name, you never know. He might have taken on Zoro as some kind of moniker. It's not really stated that he is, but you never know what we don't know what the family of the Roranoro is. We don't know what they're like. We don't even know if Zoro maybe came from the Wano Country, but it's completely. I think it's true that he did not, because he grew up in the East Blue, as far as we know. I mean, he was training there, so he obviously grew up there. Whether he was born there is a different story, because he was a little boy the first time we saw him. Zoro's personality, his inability to like his inability for directions is really profound to me. But the thing is, he may be inept in that. He still managed to find his way around, which is really what's really weird to me. He may be direction inept, but he still managed to find his way around and survive on his own. Um, I mean, and then again, I mean, the whole three sword thing was him just showing if you can beat me with one sword, I'll beat you with three. What he was doing was if he could beat me one sword, like I said, his three sword style, in my opinion, has a lot to do with Karai. And I honestly want him to come out with it and say, like, well, what was the point of his three sword style? Honestly, I think it has a lot to do with Karai. Plain and simple. And maybe at some point we'll even get a freaking technique named after Karai. You never know. We haven't seen it happen yet, but I'm pretty sure we'll probably get a technique named after Karai. It probably hasn't happened yet because he hasn't gotten over it, which is probably what it comes down to. I don't think Zoro's gotten over it. There's really not much to go on with Zoro because there isn't a lot of mystery with him. As I said, we don't know much about his past, but in my opinion, does that make Zoro any less interesting? Like, you don't know much about Sanji's past, but does that make him less interesting? No, actually, the fact that we're going to find out more about his past is what makes him even more interesting nowadays. But like, with Zoro, the closest thing we can ever get is with Wano Country, and what I'm really interested in is the demon swords. What I'm going to call them, the living swords in One Piece. We've gotten glimpses of some. Zoro even has one. We've heard about them. We know for a fact that these swords are on a different level, than normal blades. Plus, we also know that there are definitely samurais or sword-wielding people in One Piece that go beyond the power of a normal swordsman. Zoro's even said this when he was battling T-Bone during the Water 7 thing. He said, like, T-Bone is no amateur. He may not be that strong, but he is no amateur. Him being able to throw sword waves is showing that swordsmen in that world, depending on what kind of power level they're at, they're able to throw sword gust. And that's something can even bring that up. It's like, okay, so that is something you can see. They know they're doing it on purpose. Meaning that's kind of the basis of a lot of Zoro's techniques, is being able to throw around these blasts of air that do a lot of damage. And some techniques don't even rely on that. They rely on his ability to move quickly, like the one sword style, which I think is pretty cool. One sword style, I think that's really freaking cool. Even the no sword style, which is an interesting technique in itself. But it's like Zoro, in a sense, like there's not really much that we can say is a mystery with them because we haven't really. He hasn't done anything that doesn't really make a lot of sense yet, or why he would know this. I mean, Zoro is basically dumb. He's a really cool character, but he's not really that deep. And I think it's really what Zoro was meant to be. Was not a deep character. He's not meant to have a deep backstory. He's not supposed to have a deep reasoning for a lot of what he does. He just does it, and he's really good at it. Honestly, in my opinion, we'll probably get more explanation towards why he's named a style of swordplay, three sword style. But that also means we're probably going to see a lot more sword style techniques in the future that mirror his. Because if Zoro is as famous as I think he is, Zoro's name has reached further than any swordman's name has ever reached. It's probably reached even further, or has reached on the same pinnacle as Dracul Mihawk, which, by the way, I think Mihawk even stated when he first met Zoro, he has heard about the swordsman from the East Blue. But Mihawk didn't think it was worthy. Plus, another thing, when Dracul Mihawk even beat him, he said that you're not allowed to die yet. Like, rise above me, defeat me. Mihawk sees something in Zoro. So, obviously, we're going to see a lot more with Zoro in the future. Whether it has to do with him progressing, or whether it has something to do with his background, we'll never know. But I think the main reason why no one's ever really thought about Zoro's background is because it doesn't really matter. Zoro isn't mysterious, and if he is, he's a really cool mysterious that nobody really cares about. I should have thought about this a little bit further, but like thinking back on like the information we now know, what we've been knowing about Zoro, there's really not much we can say other than maybe because I mean there's a theory out there saying that just some kind of like Karai's murder, as people are calling it, not really an accident, was not an accident. You know, when I actually read about that and actually figured out the timing of when she died compared to when she told Zoro that she wants to become a swordsman, it's kind of coincidental that she ended up falling down a flight of stairs, getting a sharpening stone, which she would have never needed if she hadn't battled Zoro with her actual blade. Um, so it's also something to really think about too. It's like maybe we're gonna get more. It's gonna be more about Karai than Zoro. Maybe we're gonna finally get some closure for Zoro, because I feel like Zoro hasn't really closed that portion of that chapter of his life yet. He's still grieving, even we don't notice. And I think that's a lot to do with him as a person. He's still grieving. He's still in pain from her death. Um, and maybe once we finally get that closure for Zoro, maybe he'll improve his character, and maybe we'll get more out of him. Maybe he'll be more open. Because Zoro, I know, is a very closed book. He doesn't really socialize with a lot of people on the boat. He actually ends up going off on his own on anything he does, and he ends up sleeping a lot of the time. He's not really social. He's always by himself. He never really needed to depend on anybody. But I really think that when we do finally get to Wano Country, we're going to see a lot of Zoro business, and maybe just maybe we'll find out that Karai's accidental death was no accident. Because there's a theory out there that Karai's murder, Karai was actually killed. She didn't accidentally slip down a flight of stairs and die, getting a sharpening stone. Some people are actually stating that Karai was pushed down the stairs by her father, which is very weird considering we don't really know much about Zoro's master. He definitely seemed to have a soft spot for Zoro, much more than he had for his own daughter. So there's always that. We don't know much about Zoro's master. And actually, when I really think about it, Zoro's master is a more of a mystery than Zoro himself. How Zoro even got there where he was is also even more of a mystery. Like, there's a lot of, I guess you could say how Zoro managed to get to the dojo is a mystery in itself. But the only simple theory I can come up with how Zoro ended up there, Zoro lived in a village, so it's probably not that far away from the village that was that Karai was living in. Maybe Karai and Zoro had met at a very young age, because that's another thing. Karai and Zoro seem to know each other very well. So I almost want to say that Karai and Zoro knew each other from at a very young age. And maybe that's how Zoro managed to probably get into the training program over there. He knew everybody there. He knew the village people. His parents probably had some type of thing with it too. Maybe his father was a swordsman. We'll never really know. So I think a lot of it has to do with Zoro may have lived in a neighboring village, came over, did some training, always comes back to get stronger. His main goal is to defeat Karai, and as we all know, Karai ends up slipping down a flight of stairs. Which, by the way, that happens the day after she proclaims her desire to become the greatest swordsman. It's kind of coincidence. It's not a coincidence in my opinion. Like she ended up slipping down a flight of stairs after she says that. It's like, honestly, in my opinion, I'm willing to believe the theory that she was murdered because her skill was so great. I think, and this is another thing, and it was by her father too, who didn't want to pass on the title to her. Which actually is very, like, that right there is really messed up. And if Zoro was to ever find that out, I think he'd go after his old master. In anything, he'll go after his master. And it seems like a lot of what he's doing right now is even pushed by his master. I mean, even Zoro's ability to cut nothing and cut anything came from his master. His old master in the flashback said that as long as the wielder is controlling the sword, not the sword controlling the master, you can do anything with the sword. You can even not cut anything, even though you penetrate it. He managed to cut steel, pretty much something that he wasn't able to do before. So I mean, Zoro has the ability to master any technique set before him. That right there says, like, I think something's really going on here. The fact that Zoro's always been beat by Karai, and the one time he was going to try to see if he can beat her, she ended up getting killed. And actually, I think another thing in the English dub, as far as I remember, I don't think it was said that she died slipping down the stairs. It was implied that she died of cancer. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I read that she slipped down a flight of stairs. I think in the English dub it was said that she died of cancer. Maybe I misread that. I don't really know. I don't remember what I was thinking at the time, but she slipped down a flight of stairs, which was not coincidental. Something happened. I'm not sure what it was, and maybe at Wano Country we'll get some connection. Maybe we'll figure out what happened. Maybe we'll even see Zoro's master. which is interesting too. Like I like to see if he'll come back, because I mean he hasn't come back yet, and I feel like this is gonna be like Wano Country in itself is gonna be instrumental for Zoro's development and probably the final development before we'll get his final transformation into the final character we'll finally see him become, whatever that is. Oh well, that's 20 minutes long, folks. I talked everything I could out of my rear end. I don't know if there really is something mysterious about Zoro that everybody has thought about that I haven't thought about yet. But I mean, the only thing really is Zoro's connection to Karai and the whole incident regarding her. I think Zoro hasn't fully recovered from her murder. Well, not her murder, but her death yet. I think it's shown in his past where he wanted to beat Karai. Now that she's gone, he can never fulfill that. That's another thing he'll never be able to accomplish. He'll never be able to beat Karai at becoming the greatest swordsman because she isn't alive anymore. His sword style, I honestly want to believe it's in a tribute to her. And in my honest opinion, I think it's in tribute to her. Another thing I think Zoro hasn't really recovered from her death is because every time he sees Tashigi, he freaks out. Like for some reason, like, and that's another thing. There's no coincidence. There's another woman roaming around One Piece that looks like Karai. That's no coincidence. The fact that she looks like Karai means something. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe Karai isn't dead. That's another thing. Like, what's the conspiracy there? Maybe, what if Zoro was told that she was dead? You know, but she never did die. Maybe she is alive somewhere. You never know. We never did see Karai die, mind you. We just heard that she died. There's a lot of things brought out about Karai. It's like I think it's more about Karai than about Zoro's past, or Karai's influence on Zoro's past, and why Zoro is like he is today. I feel like a lot of character development that Zoro needs comes from that incident. Hopefully we'll get it in Wano Country because I think it's the best point in One Piece period to develop Zoro, who at this point has never had any development as far as I'm aware, other than that cutting anything technique that he did. So Zoro in itself has some development to go. It's just that we haven't had a perfect time to put it. And I think Wano Country is going to be that arc. We're going to see some serious development for Zoro. Maybe Zoro will be the one who fights the final villain of Wano Country. You never know. He's always fought the second strongest, but it's always been implied that he could probably fight the strongest. So, I mean, it'd be kind of cool to see him fight the final. Will Luffy allow him to do that? You never know. I mean, Luffy doesn't really know much about Zoro's past either. So like, it'd be one of the cool things. Maybe Zoro ends up finding. Maybe Zoro will find somebody who looks like Karai in Wano Country and wonder what the heck's going on. And we'll get some development there, and maybe he'll leave the Straw Hats for a little time. There's a lot of things that you can do with Zoro, especially pertaining to his past, and you know, with being in the dojo. Karai, I think, has a huge influence on anything that will happen with Zoro in the future. I think Suntorio is an indirect effect of Karai, and we'll probably figure out really why he made the three-sword style. You never know. But I'll see you guys next time with the next One Piece theory, which hopefully will be the Sanji's betrayal of the One Piece Straw Hats. the Straw Hats of One Piece. We'll talk about like Sanji's potential hiding of his past to his crew, and what that could do to trust between him and everybody on his crew. Because I feel like there's a lot of things that Sanji hasn't revealed to his crewmates yet, and this could really have a potential huge effect on his relationship with them in the future. See you guys then.